So I'm super excited to introduce, as I mentioned, Naveen Jain. He is the founder of a company called Viome, and we're going to be talking all today about microbiome testing, the microbiome, and why it's super important. Now, Naveen is an entrepreneur, and he is extremely driven, and he has the goal, or maybe I should say the dream. I don't know if you're a goal oriented person or if you're a dream oriented person. We can talk about
moonshot. My moonshot is
your moonshot is to be solving the world's biggest problems through innovation. And he's done this through several other companies, one called Moon Express, Blue Dot, TalentWise, InfoSpace, and now Viome. So he is really a guy that is making great waves, particularly in the functional medicine world, because as many of you all know out there, the microbiome is so central to our health. And so he's making enormous waves and really trying to disrupt the market, the healthcare system, and the world, frankly, with Viome. He's been awarded many awards, one for his entrepreneurial success with Ernst & Young. He got the Entrepreneur of the Year Award, as well as the Albert Einstein Technology Medal, the Humanitarian Innovation Award from the United Nations, and the Most Creative Person by Fast Company, and many, many more that we can't even, say. And he hangs out with the likes of, is it Oprah and who else? People that I could only dream of knowing one day.
Amy, first of all, you're very, very kind. And you know that I'm just a person who is basking in your shadow of all the great work that you and your colleagues have been doing, because to some extent, we stand on the shoulders of the giants like you, because you really, really have innovated in this area. And your work is really something that inspires many of us, including me. So I'm so glad to be in sharing a Facebook Live with you.
Well, thank you so much. Well, let's dive straight into it. And I guess, I gave you this intro and I was sort of reading something, but, where I always like to start with guests, or just, tell us about yourself and how you got here. How are you and I on Facebook right now talking about, Viome and the microbiome?
So as you know, Amy, I'm, despite you calling me a doctor, I'm really not a doctor.
I know. I realized that after I said it. I'm so used to, running in circles with doctors. So
exactly. So I am,
you're way smarter. You're way smarter.
I wouldn't say that anything, but I really believe, that once you become an expert in a field, you essentially can improve it incrementally. You can make it 10% better. You can make it 15% better. But if you want to challenge, you want to change something, you want to disrupt something 10 times or 100 times, you really have to come as a non-expert and challenge the foundation of what everyone has taken it for granted. And obviously it applies to our current colleagues in our current healthcare system. And someone like you, Amy, already understood that our current healthcare system is failing us. It's really good if you have a acute care need. If you have an infection, you get into the accident, our healthcare system is better than, there is nothing better than our healthcare system. But if you are suffering from a chronic diseases, it actually is the worst system out there, because there is not a single entity in that healthcare system that wants to keep you healthy. The doctors make money when you are sick. The pharmaceutical companies love chronic diseases. To them, it's a subscription business. Every time they never want to understand what is causing these chronic diseases. As you know, Amy, you wrote the book on it. If chronic diseases are caused by chronic inflammation, and the chronic inflammation comes from imbalance of the things that in our gut. And we'll talk a little bit more about microbiome. But what most people don't realize is that despite we all humans share mostly the same DNA, any two people, we share 99% same DNA. And yet when it comes to our microbiome in our gut, and we're not talking about one or two, there are trillions of microbes that are living in our gut. We are less than 5% same. That means any two people, we have similarity less than 5% when it comes to a microbiome and 99% when it comes to our DNA. Most people may not realize, because it came as a shock to me, that we as humans have more foreign cells in our body than the human cells. And that is just the beginning. When it, what makes us is really the genes that are expressed in our body, and the DNA that we get from our mom and dad. They only express, give or take, 20,000 genes. Even the earthworm has 22,000 genes. So what makes us such a superhuman is because we have the trillions of microbes working in a symbiotic relationship, we as a container for these organisms. And these are trillions of these organisms. They release 2 million to 20 million genes that are expressed by these microbes. Now, if you think from a gene expression perspective, we are less than 1% human. So, I mean, literally, as proud as we are a walking, talking ecosystem. In that ecosystem, one would argue we are really evolved to be one of them and really for them.
Absolutely. So how did a guy, your volume just cut out. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, good. So what is your background? I mean, how you have, this background in technology. Did you personally have any health issues? Did a family member have a health issue, or did you just see a problem outside of yourself? Because many people that, I had a personal health story, many people, and not that you're in functional medicine, but many people doing this kind of work that really want to disrupt, the healthcare system have a personal story. And I honestly don't know if you do or not, or if you just saw.
Let me tell you what got me started, then I'll give you the personal story of what keeps me going. As you know, that my other company that I was working on is Moon Express, the only company in the universe that has permission to leave Earth orbit and land on the moon. So you're really talking to someone when we say we're going to land on the moon, we are actually taking the moon shot, not a moon shot, right? So, we are now ready to launch our first mission to the moon, and being the only company. When we land on the moon, not only we become the first company ever do so, we actually symbolically become the fourth superpower. That means only 3 superpowers have landed on the moon. And we as a private company, a small group of entrepreneurs who dedicated to thinking it is possible and we can save humanity from potential extinction by essentially creating a multiplanetary society. And as I start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we think, look, this is mostly done now. What should I do for an encore? Having done the moonshot, what else could you do? Do another moonshot. And I really looked at both the 2 things that I really felt were the most important to moving the humanity forward. One was education and one was healthcare. And it turned out that when I start to look at both the fields, the problems were very, very similar, in a sense that most people believe our education system is not working for them. Most people believe it is broken, same as a healthcare system. People believe it's not working and people believe it's broken. It turns out that neither of the system is actually broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is our education system was designed to teach us skills. And in the olden days, in the industrial era, you could learn a particular skill and use that for the rest of your life, and you were a productive citizen of the society. Today, we live in the world of exponential technologies. What that means is by the time you actually graduate from college, the skill you just learned is obsolete already. That means every 4 to 5 years, whatever we learn is being obsoleted. That means now our education system has to really cope with a new need. Not that it's doing a bad job of what it was designed for. Now we have a new need. How do we learn to learn? How do we actually solve a problem that's no longer a unidisciplinary problem, but a multidisciplinary problem? And, and that is really the key to solving the education problem. In the healthcare system is exactly the same. It was designed to treat infectious diseases and acute care. And here we are now. There's never, I've seen an industry, Amy, where the more money we are spending, people are getting sicker and sicker. What's wrong with that picture? And what's wrong with the picture is we have completely forgotten who we are as humans. We have waged a war against the microorganisms. If we ever think of someone saying, oh, you might have bacteria or virus, oh my God, kill them right now, kill them, right? And what's really happening is people are forgetting that without them, we cannot live. They are the one who provide the nutrients that our body needs. They are the first one who detoxify the things that come through our food. They are the one who are actually metabolizing our food. They are the one, they are in some sense are taking care of the parasites and killing them, and all the stuff that happens is all happening inside our gut. And, we somehow feel, we invented this field of microbiome, and somehow we have this magic thing that we came up with, understanding that how gut is the key to good health. And I was just reading that, 2,400 years ago, Hippocrates said, all diseases begin in the gut. And he knew intuitively that one man's food is another man's poison. And then he said that's something we should listen. Let food be thy medicine. Let thy medicine be the food. And, it took us 2,400 years and this advanced technology to go back to what we actually knew 2,400 years ago. Or some people will argue that in Ayurveda, which is the 5,000-year-old science, we always knew the food needs to be personalized. The only personalized drug that you need is the food that you eat every day, right? And so, I'm going to stop, take a deep breath here and see if, to explain to, most people have such a hard time, Amy, understanding this concept of microbiome because it sounds so abstract and people can't fathom all these things are living inside us and somehow it is good for you. So I came up with a tongue-in-cheek story of how humans were created. And if you allow me to indulge for 2 minutes, I would like to share that story with your audience, Amy.
Absolutely. Please do.
So here, as we all know, that our planet Earth is, 4.5 billion years old. And microorganisms start to evolve around 3.5 billion years ago. You started to see the, single cell eukaryotes, amoeba, and you start to see the viruses and bacteria and the yeast and the fungus and the mold. And humans only evolved in the last couple of 100,000 years, years ago. So how did humans come to be? So here is my theory of how it all happened. One day, all the organisms got together, the bacteria and viruses and the yeast and the fungus and the mold, and say, we're sick and tired of living in these small spaces. We want to take over the world. And they all looked at each other. And one of them said, he had a brilliant idea. What's your idea? What if we can create a bipedal thing? And if we can live bipedal thing, somebody that can walk. And what if trillions of us could live? Trillions of us could live right inside it. All we have to do is keep it healthy. We can make it crave any food we want. It's going to go run around everywhere, find the food for us to enjoy. It's going to feed us. It's going to go everywhere in the world. It's going to poop everywhere. It's going to spread us around, and we're going to take over the world. And they created humans, right? And now, as they created humans, just like today, Amy, many people believe that someday the artificial intelligence is going to become smarter than us. And what is going to happen to us as human species, right? And Elon Musk believes once AI becomes smarter than us, it's going to destroy us. And all these organisms start to wonder, we just created this thing called human. What if someday it became smarter than us? What are we going to do about it? So they reassemble and say, Master, we have a problem. We just created this monster called human. What if someday it became smarter than us? What are we going to do about it? Master says, don't worry one thing. How so, Master? Right inside their cell, Master says, they call this thing called mitochondria. What they don't realize is one of our brother right inside their cell. The mitochondria that supplies all the energy for their cell, it is our brother bacteria that's right there. We talk to it all the time. If any time the humans go out of control, we're going to shut their energy down and they are done. Master, that's really brilliant. But what you're missing is they're starting to develop this thing called brain. What are we going to do about brain? Master says, don't worry one bit. Remember, we live inside the gut. We put a direct connection to their brain. Can you believe that they call that vagus nerve? And they were thinking if they name it after Las Vegas, somehow what happens in the gut is going to stay in the gut. They were so wrong. What happens in the gut goes everywhere. In fact, what makes them feel good, this thing they call serotonin, we don't let them produce much of that. 90% of that, we produce it ourselves. And we use the vagus nerve to control their emotions, control their behavior. We control their mood. But like a good leader, we make them feel they are the one who are making the decision. We simply sit here and pull all the strings. They are the puppet. We are the puppet masters. So sit back, relax. We have taken over the world. And Amy, that's how they created humans, right? Right. And now, you think this is a tongue-in-cheek story, but there is a real science behind it. If you read a Nature paper, any one of the guys who are listening to it, just Google, the Nature published a paper last month that clearly shows that how microorganisms control our behavior, our emotions, and our mood for their own benefit. That means they are interfering with our microRNA in our brain and in our body to actually control what we do and our behavior. And that's the reason, Amy, all of the neural diseases, we call them Parkinson's. So you can Google Parkinson's and microbiome, and you will see that Parkinson's starts 15 years before in your gut, before you see the first symptom. Alzheimer, autism, depression, anxiety. Amy, it breaks our heart. Last week, we lost two good souls.
I know.
Kate Spade and Anthony, two good souls because of depression. This cannot last. Obviously, we know obesity and diabetes and autoimmune disease and the thyroid and, all the things that we know of, including cancer, is caused by the imbalance of microbiome. It is what the microbiomes are actually producing that is causing these diseases. And in fact, not only the microbiome are influential in causing cancer, even the treatment for cancer, whether it works or does not work, depends on your microbiome. So whether the chemotherapy works or kills you, or the immunotherapy works or does not work, depends on your microbiome. So here we are, Amy. We have known this, but there has never been a technology available until now to find out what is these microbes are doing inside your gut. People could look at a very high level what organisms are there, but they could never see what they are actually doing. And that is the biggest breakthrough, Amy.
So tell me this. So there are a lot of lab testing popping up because everybody's, understanding the importance of the microbiome. And many of us in functional medicine, we're typically on the cutting edge of using a lot of new technology and tests, which is one of the ways that we connect. But on the other end, a lot of tests are coming back and it's like, okay, well, so now you've sequenced, or now you tell me what my microbiome has. What do I do with that information? So I guess the real question is, how is what you're doing at Biome maybe different than some of the other tests out on the market?
So first of all, Amy, that is, a lot of the time when the field is new, many of the people who pop up are, just tend to be snake oil salespeople, right? And that's really what bothers me most, is that so many companies are going out there and taking advantage of people who are vulnerable, who are sick. And they're offering these technologies which are completely useless and I would say borderline scam, right? So when the companies are offering things like 16S test, the 16S sequencing used to be good 10, 20 years ago. But this is such an old science. First of all, anytime you're doing any test, so whether you do a Ubiome test or American Gut Project, it's a complete waste of time and money, because you can Google, what they do is they call 16S sequencing. And 16S cannot see any viruses, any yeast, any fungus, or any mold. Even the bacteria that they see, they can only see them at a genus level. At a genus level, every single one of us has identical genuses. Now, you could argue that some are more than others. So what used to happen is, like at a genus level, for the people who are not technically savvy, you say, Amy, you come from India, Naveen. Can you tell me what the India is at a genus level? I would say, of course, Amy, there are some men and there are some women and there are some young people and there are some old people. And you say, well, that's just like America. And the answer is yes. At a genus level, we all have the same genuses. But Amy said, but I hear there are more women in India and there are a lot of crime that happens in India. Women must be all criminal. And we all know that it's just not true, right? So my point is, that's exactly what the current tests do. They say your firmicutes are too high, your Bacteroidetes are too high, and you have these diseases. And at that level, you really can't do anything. What you need to know is not just their Bacteroidetes. Is it Amy? Is it Naveen? Is it Paul? Who is it at not a species level, at a strain level? But even that doesn't tell you anything, because then we need to know, is this Amy who is a doctor, or is it Amy who is a plumber, or is this Amy who is an electrician, or Amy who is an engineer? What is this Amy doing exactly inside your gut. And that is called metatranscriptomics. And that is the beauty of what we are doing, Amy, is this technology that we got, we couldn't have developed it on our own. This came out of the biodefense work that Los Alamos National Lab did for national security. So imagine the problem they were trying to solve. They were trying to solve a biodefense work. Hey, if a bad actor were to get hold of something biological, how would we ever know what's making us sick? So they had to come up with a technology that can very quickly and easily identify every organism, how active it is, and exactly what it is producing. So for example, looking at our gut, is it producing butyrate, which is good for you, or is it producing LPS, which is causing inflammation? Is it producing the folic acid, or is it producing more flagella, and that is causing the gut microbiome to be moving everywhere, right? Because it's a toxic environment, or is it a friendly environment? What kind of nutrients are being absorbed in the body, and how the host, which is us, is interacting with that. The interesting thing is, once we got this technology, it became clear to us, if we knew what's making people sick, we can keep people healthy by reversing what's making people sick. And it turned out that we can change our microbiome and its activity simply through the food and the supplements if the organisms are not there to provide the things that you need. So whether it is if you don't have enough of the butyrate producers, then you may have to take a butyrate supplement. But if you do have lots of organisms that can have potentially produce butyrate, you just have to feed them now the right way so they can produce butyrate. And that's what we look at. We look at all these enzymes and all the peptides that are being produced. And then we look at all that and say, okay, now we know what is happening inside your gut. What do you need to do? So as the question you asked me was, then what? Then what we do is, anytime you do a test with us, you get an app. Within the app, you will see every activity of all the organisms. You see exactly what is going on. And then we tell you what to do about it. Here are the supplements you need. As you know, Amy, we don't sell any supplements. So we're not going to recommend you anything that you don't need. And that's another thing, Amy, that really, really troubles me and bothers me. Many of the companies are there simply to sell their product. And they do the testing simply to sell the product that they have. So these companies like Biome, BIOHM, all they're doing is using a testing to say, oh, you need this probiotic. It doesn't matter what your results are. You need this probiotic. I mean, why bother doing the test if you're going to recommend the probiotic anyway? Just go for it, right? But they're trying to fool people into giving them sense of security that they're actually doing a test. Since we don't sell anything, we have no incentive to ever tell you what you need. But more importantly, we tell you what foods are good for you and what foods are actually harmful to you. For example, Amy, everyone tells you want to lose weight, start eating healthy. What is the healthy food? Right. There is no such thing as universal healthy food. That means a food that's good for you may be harmful to me. And the food that's good for me today may be harmful to me in 3-4 months as my body changes. So for example, I took an advice of my Western medicine doctor. She said, Naveen, you need to lose some weight and you really need to bring your glucose down. You need to start eating healthy. That means you start eating more spinach and avocado and oats and cut down all the carbs that are bad for you. I did that. First few months I lost weight, and guess what happened? Not only I gained all the weight back, my blood glucose went back up. And she starts saying, oh my God, what have you done? And I said, I haven't done anything other than follow your advice. It turned out when I started Biome, when I did the test, the things that I needed to do was minimize spinach, minimize oats, minimize avocado, minimize lentil, legumes, and tofu that I was eating, thinking they were healthy. Instead, most of my diet needed to be complex carbohydrates. And that means lot of vegetables, but lot of also wheat and other things that everyone tells you is bad for you. Most people fall into these fad diets, right? So, oh my God, I'm a gluten-free diet. We know, Amy, you and I both know less than 10% of people actually have a gluten sensitivity. Everyone else, it just feels that they have a gluten.
Well, it's about 100% in my clinic. So I must have a skewed population.
Well, I'm sure that, certain people that you're seeing who have certain chronic diseases, that may be absolutely true. I mean, I'm not suggesting, I'm saying in a larger population, that doesn't quite happen that way. Other thing that I found is that a lot of people take these, fad diets like paleo diet or, Atkins diet, and people eat so much protein. What we are seeing is when you eat a lot of protein, Amy, it goes into your gut where it starts to feed protein fermenters. And as you know, the protein fermenters release ammonia and hydrogen sulfide that causes a lot of inflammation. Same type of things happens when people go on a keto diet. Keto diet is maybe good, but when you take 5 or 6 days of fasting, anytime you fight evolution, evolution always wins. That means these microbes, if you're not feeding them, they start to eat the gut lining because we see them actually metabolizing the mucins. So we see them actually eating the gut lining. And to me, that's really what we are saying is that there is no such thing as a good food or a bad food. It is a food that's good for you or bad for you.
Right. And, there's, I think, any of that, there's evidence, one way or the other, right? Many would argue that, there's a lot of evidence. I just got back from the Institute of Functional Medicine conference, and there was a lot of, information about fasting and how good it can be for you. I did Biome, and I know I'm eventually going to go over my testing with Helen, your medical director and good friend of mine. And, but, I got my results back, and, I thought mine was going to be a bit like yours, that these really healthy foods were going to be a problem for me. And it turns out I can pretty much eat anything, which is really not the case, but that I can eat anything. Sugar was bad for me. Pork was bad for me. But I mean, it told me, all the grains and everything were good for me. Spinach is my superfood. So I guess how does that, and I'm sure it's way more complex, but how does it, how do you balance that with, someone who does tell you that they have food sensitivities, or they know when they eat a food that your test has said, that's okay, or maybe even that's your superfood, and they eat it, told me that I was fine with wheat or gluten. And I've done genetic testing. I know I have the genes for gluten sensitivity. At least I personally have autoimmunity. I have autoimmunity in my family. So, how does somebody balance all that? Because I think, Amy, information can be conflicting, right?
It is. And that's one of the things is that obviously the food, it's lots of conflicting advice you hear from different people, what's a good food or a bad food. Remember, we are simply looking at the science behind it. And a lot of the things that we actually don't take into account, and something we obviously will in the future, is how the wheat is being produced in this country. And that's part of the problem. Is it is really not the wheat as such. It is how the wheat is being produced in our country that is causing a more of the grief, because we are looking at the underlying ingredients and saying none of these, we know how these what these ingredients are and how they're going to be metabolized in your gut, and that should be fine. But what's happening is when you start to eat GMO wheat, you start to eat the wheat that have lots of pesticides and the things that are actually what we are doing now, how we are preparing our meals, and that all that changes. Because lentils and legumes were never supposed to be eaten without being soaked and without being actually being sprouted. And that's so point of the thing is that it's generally not necessarily sometimes the food, it is how the food is produced and how the food is consumed. That means if you take a lentil that may be currently causing a lot of bloating and stuff, but if you soak it and sprout it, it may actually be really good for you. So my point was that, some of the things we know, like for example, is spinach. We know that spinach has a lot of oxalate. And if you don't have the organism like oxalobacter, then we know if you're going to eat oxalate, it is going to end up in the blood, is going to either end up in your kidney as a kidney stone, or it's going to be harmful to you some way or the other, because that we know cannot be digested. Same way you can look at the stuff and saying, hey, but everyone knows the pomegranate juice is good for you. But what really people don't understand is that pomegranate juice itself actually is neither good or nor bad. What happens is the pomegranate juice has a thing called allergic acid. And unless you have the organisms and they're actually converting the allergic acid into urolithin A, which is really what has the antioxidative effect. And if you're not seeing the metabolization happening into ULA, then the pomegranate juice is at best is not doing anything for you, or at worst is causing you harm. And that's really how we look at it.
So speaking of, does your, test let you know that? I mean, does it, and I guess it's doing that by telling you, to avoid pomegranate or to eat pomegranate. It's not
That's right.
obviously digging into the weeds. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing that I would say is that the app that you all have for, I have an iPhone, but the app that you have does make it very user friendly. I mean, you're a very smart guy. I don't want it to, you know, what I want to say, overwhelm somebody, because actually the app that you have that comes when you do the test converts it into very user friendly, you know, green, eat this food, yellow, be cautious of this one, don't eat that one. So it's extremely down to earth and user friendly. But so what about the microbiome? I mean, can your diet, you know, if you eat the diet that your app recommends, individualized to you, is that then just promoting your individual microbiome and making it more robust? Or are there ways to actually change your microbiome if you don't have certain types of bacteria that would be helpful to you?
Yes. So, Amy, so first of all, very interesting that, you know, I did my first test and my diversity was really, really poor. And especially the functional diversity of the type of enzymes and the types of peptides my microbes were producing. And as I changed my diet, because what was happening was, Amy, I was on a very limited diet because I thought I needed to eat healthy. So you see me eating every day. I was eating lentils and vegetables, and I was eating tofu. And all those things, in some sense, and I was now, so basically, then when I did my first test, it said, oh my God, you have so much of the organism that depend on these food, and your other organism really being starved. So your diversity, functional diversity is really, really poor. And when I switched over my diet to essentially start, you know, avoiding spinach and lentils and legumes and avocado and oats, and start eating much more other variety of foods, I did my second test, and it turned out my diversity went through the roof. Right. In addition to that, obviously, I was also taking a lot of the supplements and stuff that I needed to digest the new food that I was eating. And what I'm trying to say is that by taking some supplements, some specific probiotic that you actually need, but you shouldn't be just taking a probiotic random, because what happens is these probiotics have billions of certain strains. If those strains are already too many in your gut, then you're going to actually cause more harm than good. If you have a SIBO, the last thing you want to do is to take more probiotic, right? So my point is you have to understand exactly what is going on before saying probiotics are always good or spinach is always good. So there is no such thing as always good, right? As Helen has taught me, it depends, right?
Right. So tell us about the end user. So, you know, or actually, why don't you just walk us through, you know, it's really easy to do the kit. And tell us the three kind of components that come to it. It's the microbiome. It also looks really at your metabolism. And then tell us about the results that somebody gets with the app. And
first of all, Amy, so it's changing every week. So this week we are making a release that is going to have some very, very interesting stuff in the release that's coming out later this week. So by Friday, hopefully it'll be in everybody's hand. And next week release, I was just before coming here, I was just discussing the 2 weeks later, what's going to come out. So I'm going to give you some sneak peek here. So this week, we actually going to start talking about not the serving size, but how many portions of each food you should be eating, and essentially trying to create more diversity. So we'll say, if you're taking vegetables, make sure you take 2 from your superfood and 2 from your indulge food. And by the way, and then for your lunch and dinner, take 2 from this and 1 from this. And if you're going to be eating beef, the serving size is 1 ounce, not 12 ounce, right? So we are essentially coming up with a biome, portion, what that portion looks like for each meat, and you need to take 4 portions of this, 2 portions of this, 1 portion of that, right?
So if somebody's already done the test, is that something that comes into the app, so that will automatically be upgraded for them?
Yeah. So again, remember, what we do is the test we're doing is, again, Amy, is called RNA sequencing, the metatranscriptomics. This test used to cost $5,000. We brought the price down to $399. As a matter of fact, Amy, if I can tell your audience, for the first time in the history of Biome, we are running a promotion. We have never done that. And for Father's Day, being a dad, to me, there was no better week to run a Father's Day promotion. We didn't do that for Mother's Day, but we said, you know what? The Father's Day is an amazing for all the dads. For the first time, we reduced the price to $299.
Wow.
And, right.
Okay. So anybody wants to take advantage, you can go to amymd.io/biome, and it's $299, $100 off between now and Father's Day, or
Yeah, now until actually 11:59 on Monday, so actually Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning. Okay.
Right. So anytime you can go do that. And this test used to cost $5,000. It's a 1-year service. That means anything we update during the year, you automatically get that. So as we learn more, because remember, we have now tens of thousands of users. As we learn more from every user, we give that learning to everyone that came before them and everyone who comes after us, right? At the same time, Amy, every test you do subsequently during the year, we only charge $199 because, as you know, as you change your diet and you change your recommendations with the new food, your body is going to change and adapt. And if you don't change you don't do the test again, then you're going to go back into the same thing. That's the reason people plateau out, is because what was working for them stops working. So think of it as like a seesaw, right? It's imbalance. And if you don't stop when it's balanced, then it's going to go imbalance the other way.
Right. And I always love, it's always great to have, testing, because it's always great to have testing because, then, if you're feeling better, you can see that your microbiome is looking better as well, or more diversity like you had.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't know if this applies because you're doing a DNA sequencing or RNA sequencing test,
yeah.
But is there any sort of, on the samples, do y'all do any kind of like split testing to make sure that you're getting the same results twice, or no, because it's like using PCR or something with RNA?
So we actually, absolutely, if you take exactly the same sample and you do it twice, so what we do is we take the thing we get back from you. Most people think they're sending us a poop. Actually, they don't. When you put that in a tube and you shake it up, it actually kills everything and simply keeps the RNA. And then when we get them, we divide them into 3 test tubes. So we now have 2 more samples that we can run, right? And anytime we now run 3 samples, we get identical results, never a change, because these samples are identical and they always get the identical results. So even if sometimes we find there is an error in the processing, we still have 2 more samples that we can use.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay, so somebody sends in the results and then they
change the diet.
In case people do sign up and they have this question, because I had it myself, there's a drink in there that you drink because they do like
not anymore. Amy, gone. That's gone.
Oh, that's gone.
So now in the new test that we have, we spent $2 million, and we spend unbelievable amount of time by having 1,000 people go through the continuous glucose monitoring to be able to predict based on your gut microbes and what they are doing. We can now tell you every food what is going to happen in your gut. So we actually got rid of the metabolic intelligence test that you had to do. So now that's actually, as opposed to you pricking your fingers, we actually spend our money so you don't have to do it anymore.
Okay, well, that's good. No, actually what I was going to say is there's something you have to drink and it is gluten-free, because I called and asked, is it gluten-free, dairy-free, and all that other stuff.
No, you don't have to do that anymore.
No more of that. So then you get your results and you make some changes. And what are some, because I know we've kind of said some super high level stuff, but what's some, I know you mentioned what you personally experienced, but there other feedback that you've gotten from clients or things of either health conditions that people have reversed? Could you tell us a few success stories?
Oh my God, Amy. If you ask me, as an engineer, as a software engineer, I know you get this every day, the satisfaction of hearing from the people that you change their lives. And I never thought in my life I would ever have that satisfaction. And I think, to me, I now have admiration for people like you, Amy, who are just dedicate their soul, and the only reward they get is a person coming back, gives you a hug and saying, you changed my life. You saved me.
I know, but it's so worth it, right? It's like more important than anything else.
Yes. And so to give you an idea, we have probably, hundreds and thousands of people we get every week, every month, telling us their acne is gone, their eczema is gone, their skin conditions are improved, their autoimmunity is disappeared, people who have lost massive amount of weight. 2 of our customers went on Dr. Oz show themselves. One lost 71 pounds, one lost 45 pounds. And they both were just simply following the recommendation. Remember, we don't focus on weight loss. All these girls had was a massive amount of inflammation and leaky gut. And we fixed that, and their obesity went away, right? We see people who have diabetic for so long, and suddenly they're telling us their doctors are finding, what have you done magically that you don't need insulin anymore, right? You're seeing people who have depression and anxiety. They're writing us, and you can watch them on YouTube. People are posting their videos. I was so ashamed to say that I had depression. Now that it's gone, I can talk about it. Right.
And so besides dietary interventions, is there anything else that you recommend? I mean, do you recommend any lifestyles such as, meditation or exercise or anything like that? Or is it really just dietary recommendations?
So it's mostly dietary and supplement. And everyone knows, Amy, I mean, that it obviously working out is good for your brain, is good for your body. So it is something is generally good for everyone. So anyone that's not personalized to you. So what we do is we give you what's personalized specifically for you. And in the general tips, we say, of course, the more you work out, not more, at least work out 1 hour a day. And if you can do meditation of 30 minutes and reduce the stress, that means get rid of people around you who bring you down, right? Get rid of all the stress. Anyone who laughs at your ambition, get rid of them. Anytime you're working for a boss who's causing you stress, leave the company. So my point is, those are very generic advice, and we do give that to everyone, but those are not personalized for you.
Right. Okay, so if people are interested, they can go to amymd.io/Viome, and that's spelled Viome. And right now, as Naveen has said, the test is normally, $5,000. They've made it to be $399, but it's $299, so $100 off between now and the Monday after Father's Day. So what is that, like the 18th or the morning of the 19th?
Morning of the 19th. I think it's, Monday is
the 18th. So we'll just say midnight on the 18th.
Midnight on 18th, Amy.
Yeah. So basically, you'll get a kit sent to you. It's super easy to do. And you send in your sample and you download a free app at the App Store called Biome, and really walks you through. And I'm going to have Helen Messier, who is your chief medical officer at the company and chief researcher. And she is going to go over my results with me and my daughters as well. And then I'm going to have her back on a Facebook Live, and we'll talk about my results, what I implemented, and, kind of go from there. So we'll keep you guys posted about everything.
But she's amazing, Amy. As you know, she's your friend, but she's just so talented. She's a PhD in microbiology. She's an MD, teaches at IFM functional medicine, and she was working for Craig Venter on the human longevity before I stole her.
I know, and she's great, and she's a good friend. So I just saw her last, I guess that was about a week or so ago. We had dinner together.
Yep.
So she's actually how you and I got connected, and then we ran into one another randomly in Detroit recently.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
And thank you for, your dedication to really changing the face of healthcare and changing the world, frankly. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy, for what you do. And I just said, I am one of your biggest fans. So please, this is a fanboy moment from me. So thank you.
Oh, you cut out right there. I couldn't hear at the end, but
I'm saying that this was a fanboy moment for me. I'm your big fan.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, take care, and we'll chat with you soon. And everybody stay posted. We'll keep you posted for when I'm going to do that interview with Dr. Messier, and go out and check out Viome. Is it just Viome.com?
Yes. Viome.com.
Viome.com.
Yes. Thanks.
All right.
Amy.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.